On January 16, 2003, NASA sent 7 astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia STS-107 to go on a 17-day science mission to research numerous microgravity experiments. On board the orbiter was 7 crew members: Rick D. Husband, William C. McCool, David Brown, Laurel Clark, Michael P. Anderson, Alain Ramon, and Kalpina Chawla. After these 7 astronauts conducted their mission, they tragically lost their lives as the Space Shuttle Columbia exploded during its re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. In this video, we will learn about the crew members aboard the Space Shuttle Columbia and the events that led to the Space Shuttle's downfall. According to Space.com, discussions on developing a reusable spacecraft began in 1966, when NASA was looking to figure out what programs would come after Apollo. While NASA was tasked with beginning the work, development was held off for years by budgetary constraints, according to NASA's history documents. Work resumed more seriously when the first landing on the Moon was admitted in 1969. At that time, then President Richard Nixon appointed a Space Task Group to look at future space operations and in subsequent years began awarding design contracts for shuttle ideas. However, according to NASA history documents, when NASA submitted its first September 1970 budget to the White House, it became clear that the Nixon administration, and Congress would not support the development of a space station and space shuttles at the same time. So NASA was forced to rethink its expectations and make some changes to reduce the cost. Some compromises were made in the design in response to budgetary constraints and input from the military, which was expected to be a major customer of the shuttle. For example, the size of the cargo bay was increased to accommodate large military satellites. Also, it was decided to make the shuttle only partially reusable instead of fully reusable to save on development costs, although critics noted that this would increase the cost of individual flights according to NASA history documents. Construction began on a prototype on June 4, 1974. That spacecraft was designated Enterprise. Its purpose was to perform test flights and landings. Space Shuttle Enterprise never flew into outer space. Construction on Space Shuttle Columbia began on March 27, 1975. The Space Shuttle Columbia was named after the first American ship to circumnavigate the globe and also the command module for the Apollo 2nd mission moon landing. Columbia flew 28 missions in its lifetime, logging more than 300 days in space. In its earliest days, it participated in repairing and developing satellites and telescopes, but as NASA prioritizes change to science, Columbia flew several productive science missions in the 1990s and 2000s before its tragic end. Now, one question I had, and I'm sure you all have, is what led to the Space Shuttle's downfall? By researching this subject, I found on Space Safety magazine that the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, or the CAIB, reports determined that the technical cause of the accident was a faulty design in the external tank. A piece of insulating foam broke off the tank just after launch and struck the leading edge of the Space Shuttle's left wing at relatively high velocities of 670 and 922 kilometers per hour. Although the incident was discovered 2 days after the launch during a routine post-launch photo analysis, managers at NASA deemed it absolutely no concern for entry. The 6 volumes of the CAIB report explains the sequence of events that led to the breakup of the shuttle. Apparently, a harmless 1 kilogram piece of foam debris had blown a hole in the left wing. While it seems impossible that a low-density foam can destroy a reinforced carbon-carbon panel, ground tests prove this fact to be true at tremendous speeds. Now here is a video of the Space Shuttle Columbia going into space. And if you notice the left wing, you can see the debris striking the Space Shuttle as it enters Earth's atmosphere. So if you look at the left wing, you see it hit and strike and break. This is what caused the Space Shuttle Columbia's downfall. The hole in the thermal protection tile allowed superheated air produced during atmospheric re-entry to pass through. The heat penetrated the insulation and ultimately destroyed the left wing. The thermal degradation resulted in a rapid catastrophic structural breakdown rather than an instantaneous explosive failure. At an altitude of 42,672 meters, the crew modulus separated from the fuselage, triggering an instant depressurization. NASA later revealed that the foam strike had been seen in almost every shuttle launch and that it had never proved to be a problem before. Their flawed reasoning combined with wrong assumptions in modeling the impact that predicted the depth to which the foam debris would penetrate the thermal protection system tile ultimately led to 7 astronauts to play with their lives. The high-speed impact test of a block of foam into a reinforced carbon-carbon model of a space shuttle wing proves that the foam strike was the most likely cause of the Columbia disaster. And here we have a video of the re-entry of the Columbia space shuttle into Earth's atmosphere. As you can see, it starts to break apart as it re-enters the atmosphere. The debris from this disaster was spread over an area of 5,129 square kilometers in East Texas, necessitating the largest search in American history. The nation came together and responded. Thousands of volunteers descended upon Texas to participate in the effort to gather the shuttle's remains. They lived and worked under difficult conditions, not expecting anything in return. It took 4 months for all of the debris to be assembled. The CAIB and its partners could finally complete a technical post-analysis. Writer Ramaziam Vingopal at Space Safety Magazine also writes about what happened to the crew, saying, "Besides the loss of the vehicle, the Columbia disaster was first and foremost a human tragedy, and NASA wants to know what killed the Columbia crew." The investigation revealed that when the crew module separated from the fuselage, rapid depressurization occurred. The crew members did not have the time to close their helmet visors. Some of the crew were not wearing helmets or gloves and were just incapacitated within seconds. The unconscious crew was subjected to rotational forces caused by the shuttle rolling after the loss of the left wing, and the seat restraints could not prevent lethal blows from other objects in the crew modulus. Even if they had been wearing all of their gear, the report predicted that they had little chance of survival. It states the cause of death as blunt trauma and loss of oxygen. A damaged videotape was recovered from the wreckage that shows the final few moments of the crew. Ironically, they are seen enjoying the effects of the heat caused by the re-entry, glowing against the window which had later ripped the shuttle apart. NASA tried to remove the Crew Survival Working Group section from the CAIB report. considering it to be too disturbing for the victims' families. Jonathan Clark, the guy to the far left, had a different opinion, and he was in a unique position. From one side, he was a space shuttle crew surgeon, and he had always been involved in topics like crew survival. From the other, he had been directly affected by the tragedy as he was the husband of Laurel Clark, one of the victims. Either way, he believed that the Columbia Crew Survival Working Group section constituted a fundamental document that had to be published to prevent a similar engineering tragedy in the future. He discussed the issues with the others affected families and got their unconditional approval to publish it. A second commission of the Spacecraft Crew Survival Integrated Investigation Team, or SCSIIT, was formed a year after the tragedy to perform a comprehensive analysis of the accident, focusing on factors and events affecting the crew survival and to develop recommendations for improving crew survival for all future human spaceflight vehicles. Clark was a member of the SCSIIT and spent months investigating the last instance of the life of the crew. The result was a detailed report entitled Columbia Crew Survival Investigation Report on December 30, 2008. The 400-page report was finally released to the public. In 2009, Jonathan Clark joined the Red Bull team as a medical director, hoping to develop the gear that could save future crews from accidents like Columbia. His dream came true on October 14, 2012, when Felix Baumgartner survived a parachute jump from the same altitude that Columbia broke apart. If you guys want to check out that video, here it is. It's pretty cool. Author Mary Ezrail at Space Safety Magazine got a chance to interview Mike Cianelli on the left, Columbia's test project engineer, about the lessons learned from the Columbia disaster. In her article, she writes, on February 1, 2003, Mike was Columbia's test project engineer. He spent much of the rest of that year hunting for remains of the STS-107. Looking back now, Mike has time to absorb the events of that day and the analysis that followed, and he had some lessons for all of us. Lesson 1 from Mike was make sure the decisions you make are really based on fact. Lesson 2 that Mike gives is keep vigilant when things that were once off normal become normal for you. The third lesson Mike gives us is listen to your vehicle. The vehicle is always talking to you, giving you hints. The fourth lesson was, he says he knows it sounds cliche, but communication is critical, down to the engineers, to the technicians on the floor. These are the lessons that Mike gives the author at Space Safety Magazine that hopefully in the future will help change the ways that aeronautics is looked at, so future engineering and space programs will not follow the same mistakes that they made back in 2003.